Hey everyone, quick question. Have you ever got a job application and began to fill it out and you started to look at the requirements that they were asking for and you realized like, maybe I'm not qualified for this job because the requirements they're asking for you don't have. Well, did you know that God has requirements for his people? Um, Things and characteristics that they must have to be his followers, to be called image bearers of God. Um, and we'll get into that a little bit later, but I just want to introduce myself. I'm Pastor Manny, and this is a ministry here that we have at English Oaks called Looking Up. And Sunday through Friday, Pastor Bob and I have these posts in the morning to encourage you, to bring an encouraging thought for the day. But yeah, just going back to the question or the comment of God has requirements for us, and that's something that we're going to talk about at the end. Okay, but real quick, I just wanted to mention a word that's probably being thrown around a lot and really being thought about right now is the word justice. And and I'm sure many of us have different ideas and opinions about justice. But for me, like, and as a believer of Jesus and as a believer of the Bible, that's where I turn to look for what justice truly means. And it's the picture that the Bible portrays of justice is so beautiful. And these are just some things I want to share that I learned in a Bible study recently with our youth group. And there's a word in Hebrew that says zedekah, and this word in Hebrew means righteousness. And what it gets deeper into is what it talks about is an ethical standard that refers to right relationships between people. It's about treating others as the image of God and with the God-given dignity they deserve. Okay, so that's zedekah, which means righteousness. And there's another word in Hebrew that's pronounced mishpah, and this means justice. And the definition kind of this word is it can mean a retributive justice. But most of the time in the Bible, when it's used, it talks about restorative justice. And it means going a step further, it means seeking out the vulnerable and helping them. Okay, seeking out the vulnerable and helping them. And righteousness and justice are all over the Bible. So, and here are some other examples. In Proverbs 31:8-9, it says, "Open your mouth for the mute, for the rights of all who are destitute. Open your mouth, judge righteously, defend the rights of the poor and needy." And in Jeremiah 22:3, it says, "Thus says the Lord, do justice and righteousness, and deliver from the hand of the oppressor him who has been robbed. And do no wrong or violence to the resident alien, the fatherless and the widow, nor shed innocent blood in this place." And in Psalms 46:7-9 says, "Who executes justice for the oppressed? Who gives food to the hungry? The Lord sets the prisoners free. The Lord watches over the sojourners. He upholds the widow and the fatherless, but the way of the wicked he brings to ruin." And that's amazing how God just he lists all these people that he wants to take care of, that he wants to protect. And he also wants us to do the same thing. But I also think it's amazing how in the last part of Psalm 146, verse 9, it says, he brings the way of the wicked to ruin. And that word wicked in Hebrew means rasha. And it simply means that to be in the guilty or to be in the wrong. And it means to mistreat another human being, ignoring their dignity as an image bearer of God. And, and we are all guilty of something. We're guilty of doing injustice to people. We're guilty of something, right? And so justice and righteousness are a big deal to God. And when you look at the Old Testament, you see the Israelites and how they were in captivity with the Egyptians, right? And then God went and he declared the Egyptians guilty for the wrong that they were doing to the Israelites, and he set them free. He set the Israelites free. And but the tragedy here is that when we see Israel becoming free and becoming a nation and things like that, this redeemed people, they actually go and commit the same injustice that the Egyptians did. And this is when God sends prophets to declare them guilty. And it's pretty sad how that happens, right? And then there's injustice everywhere, right? We all have probably participated actively, passively, or maybe unintentionally. We have all participated in injustice somehow, some way. But the amazing thing that God has a response for this, right? And his response is Jesus. And Jesus did righteousness and he did justice, and yet he died for the guilty. And with this act, the guilty can now partake of Christ's righteousness, right? So something that I didn't deserve, I can now partake of because Jesus did it for me. And Jesus calls us to love our neighbor, right, as ourselves. It means in many ways to make other people's problems my own. And it does not mean turning a blind eye. It means partaking in treating everyone with dignity and the God-given dignity they were meant to have as being image bearers of God, right? And I would say it even goes to the point if it's a salvation issue, because as we see in Matthew 25, right, Jesus says, if you have clothed people, then you've done it for me. If you have fed them, you have done it for me. If you visited the prisoners, you have done it for me, right? And so Jesus, and this is the part where this part of Matthew is talking about salvation and the second coming. And this is so powerful because what really makes God upset is how people are mistreated, right? And so the more we do justice and righteousness to people, the more we will be we will walk blamelessly with God, right? And then so just going back to that question we had earlier of what are the requirements that a Christian should have, right? As you're applying for jobs, there are certain requirements that you must have for a job, and sometimes you don't meet those requirements, so you can't get the job, right? And so, but God has requirements for us, and this is where it says, it's found in Micah 6:8. It says, "He has told you, O man, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you, but to do justice, to love kindness, or to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God." That is the requirement that we must have as followers of God, is to do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with him. So this is something I pray that we all think about and really pray upon, because if this is something we struggle with, then God can change our hearts, right? He can remove a heart of stone and give us a heart of flesh. And that's my prayer for us this week, that when we really think about these things, that we will ask ourselves, do I meet these requirements? And if I don't, God, please help me to. Please give me, help me to have a sense of justice that you have. Help me to love mercy like you do, and help me to walk humbly with you. All right. God bless everyone. I hope you have a good week and take care.